To truly grasp the profound significance of Ozzy Osbourne's hidden vault, not a figment of rock and roll myth, but a very real, legendary repository that eventually surfaced to confirm every wild suspicion about the iconic musician, one must first immerse themselves in the tumultuous, electrifying, and often bewildering world of the Prince of Darkness himself. John Michael Ozzy Osbourne is far more than just a rock star. He is an elemental force of nature, a singular cultural phenomenon whose existence has been a relentless, dizzying roller coaster of unprecedented highs, terrifying, near-fatal lows, and a staggering, almost mythological amount of rock and roll excess. Before we get started, please consider liking and subscribing. Your support is greatly appreciated. His public persona, meticulously honed through decades of pioneering heavy metal with Black Sabbath and an explosive, boundary-shattering solo career, is one of unbridled rebellion, a theatrical, almost ritualistic embrace of the macabre, and a chaotic brilliance that captivated, horrified, and ultimately enchanted millions across generations. This larger-than-life image was consistently, almost meticulously, reinforced by his infamous, often shocking, on-stage antics, legendary off-stage debauchery, and a seemingly endless, almost unbelievable stream of bizarre, frequently unbelievable anecdotes that became the stuff of legend. Ozzy's reputation as a man living perpetually on the edge, pushing every conceivable boundary, was not merely a shrewdly manufactured gimmick or a calculated marketing ploy. It was deeply, fundamentally ingrained in his very being. Stories of his wildness are not just numerous, they are legion, often recounted with a mix of awe and bewildered amusement. The notorious incident of biting the head off a bat during a live performance in Des Moines, Iowa in 1982, a moment that cemented his Prince of Darkness moniker. The equally bizarre, albeit less bloody, tale of snorting a line of ants when challenged by Motley Crue's Nikki Sixx, public urination in unsuitable locations, wanton property damage during drug-fueled rampages, and a perpetual agonizing battle with severe substance and alcohol abuse that frequently brought him to the very brink of disaster, physically and psychologically. His homes, particularly the sprawling, eccentric mansion in Beverly Hills that became a global stage, were often depicted as visceral extensions of his chaotic inner world, sprawling, labyrinthine spaces filled with a strange, often unsettling assortment of possessions, eclectic decor ranging from religious iconography to bizarre taxidermy, and a general, almost palpable, air of unpredictable, high-octane energy. This domestic chaos was meticulously, albeit humorously, documented for years on his hugely successful reality TV show, The Osbournes, which offered an unprecedented, unfiltered glimpse into the tumultuous daily life of the first family of metal. Given this deeply entrenched, well-established pattern of extreme behavior, rampant excess, and a life lived with seemingly little regard for conventional norms or societal expectations, the notion that Ozzy might possess a secret, private storage space or vault tucked away from casual public view, filled with the tangible remnants, both glorious and grotesque, of his extraordinary journey, wasn't just plausible, it was almost an intuitive certainty, a logical and inevitable extension of a life too vast, too wild, too unconventional, and too filled with unique artifacts to be contained within typical domestic or even celebrity bounds. This hidden vault was not some ethereal, mythical attic conjured from the collective imagination of obsessed fans or tabloid sensationalism. It was a very real, physical location, a confirmed repository of personal effects that eventually came to light, holding tangible artifacts from Ozzy's incredible career and profoundly unconventional personal life. For those intimately familiar with Ozzy's often bewildering trajectory, from his impoverished working-class beginnings in Aston, Birmingham, to his meteoric ascent as a global rock icon, his repeated near-fatal brushes with death, his various, often public attempts at sobriety and rehabilitation, and his surprising reinvention as a beloved reality TV personality, it was intuitively understood that such a comprehensive storage facility would contain far more than just discarded old clothes, forgotten furniture, or mundane personal effects. It would, by its very nature, be a living, breathing, albeit static, tangible reflection of his singular, inimitable existence, a veritable time capsule filled with the detritus and the priceless treasures of a life that consistently defied belief, logic, and often the laws of physics. The very existence of such a place, especially if it was hidden or simply unpublicized for decades, spoke volumes about the sheer volume, the often bizarre nature, and the intensely personal significance of the countless items Ozzy would accumulate throughout his long and storied career. Items simply too personal, too historically valuable, too strangely unique, or perhaps too incriminating to be casually discarded, openly displayed, or entrusted to public scrutiny without careful consideration. What precisely fueled the widespread, almost universal belief that such a private repository existed, even before its specific location or contents were widely known or publicly revealed? It stemmed from several deeply rooted, interconnected factors. Firstly, Ozzy's immense and prolonged success, spanning over 5 decades, meant literally decades of relentless touring, prolific recording sessions, countless merchandise launches, and an almost pathological habit of collecting, resulting in an enormous, unwieldy accumulation of bespoke stage costumes, some famously outlandish, iconic musical instruments, often damaged or customized, gold and platinum awards that stacked higher than a man, an endless deluge of heartfelt fan mail, unique personal gifts from admirers and celebrities alike, and countless other souvenirs, trinkets, and memorabilia. Secondly, his notoriously turbulent and often chaotic personal life, marked by multiple marriages, numerous homes across continents, extended periods of intense substance abuse that blurred reality, and occasional desperate attempts at cleaning up his act, would naturally lead to the haphazard stashing away of items deemed too sensitive, too incriminating, or simply forgotten during prolonged periods of drug-induced haze or frantic relocation. Sharon Osbourne, his formidable wife and astute manager, often spoke publicly and privately about the monumental, often Sisyphean, task of managing Ozzy's eccentricities, containing his excesses, and meticulously protecting his public image. This strongly implied that certain aspects of his life, certain periods, and certain tangible mementos were best kept out of immediate public view, away from the prying eyes of the media and the curious gaze of the public. A private, perhaps even clandestine vault could serve as both a vital historical archive of his career and a discreet, secure repository for things that didn't fit neatly into the carefully constructed public narrative, or things that might require extremely careful, controlled handling before ever seeing the light of day. The collective, pervasive suspicion among fans, biographers, and casual observers alike, therefore, was not merely that Ozzy might possess a conventional storage unit like any other celebrity. It was the deeply held conviction that if such a place were ever opened, if its long-held secrets were finally laid bare, its contents would provide irrefutable, undeniable evidence of the sheer scale of his wildness, the depth of his artistic genius, and the complex, often contradictory, deeply personal facets of his larger-than-life persona. People didn't just suspect a normal, dusty attic. They fervently anticipated a veritable trove of the bizarre, the magnificent, the profoundly disturbing, and the intimately revealing. This pervasive anticipation built steadily over decades, constantly fueled by candid interviews where Ozzy often revealed more than he intended, the shocking revelations of documentaries, and the endless, often embellished, stream of personal anecdotes from those who witnessed his exploits firsthand. The very concept of Ozzy having a hidden lair or a secret vault wasn't just about secrecy for secrecy's sake. It was about the tangible manifestation of a life that consistently pushed every boundary imaginable, defiantly defied all conventional expectations, and inexplicably managed to amass a collection of memories, relics, and remnants that were as uniquely extreme, as gloriously chaotic, and as profoundly revealing as the Prince of Darkness himself. The stage was thus perfectly set for the inevitable moment when this private vault would indeed yield its long-guarded secrets, finally confirming in vivid material detail what everyone already had a strong gut feeling about for years. The contents would not merely surprise, they would affirm a legend. The pervasive anticipation surrounding Ozzy Osbourne's fabled hidden vault was never mere speculative fantasy. For decades, it existed as an almost palpable, living presence in the collective consciousness of fans, dedicated biographers, and the broader music industry alike. This made its eventual unveiling and, more crucially, the detailed revelation of its astonishing contents far more than just a typical celebrity archival discovery. Instead, it was a profound, almost audible click that seamlessly locked into place, unequivocally confirming all the wildest, most outlandish suspicions and long-held beliefs about the Prince of Darkness's eccentric, tumultuous, and profoundly unique life. It wasn't about a sudden dramatic break-in by an unwitting caretaker, but rather the systematic, ongoing, and often daunting process orchestrated primarily by Sharon Osbourne, his formidable wife and astute manager, as part of a meticulous, long-term effort to safeguard and organize Ozzy's vast, sprawling legacy. This was a professional undertaking of immense scale, opening, assessing, categorizing, and eventually preserving a colossal collection of artifacts that had been stored, sometimes meticulously, sometimes haphazardly, across various properties the Osbournes owned globally, and within dedicated, purpose-built storage facilities managed by their estate over the course of many decades. These weren't simply forgotten boxes accumulating dust. They represented an almost archaeological dig into decades of accumulated history from a man who had lived his life at an unimaginable, breakneck speed, often leaving behind a whirlwind trail of incredible moments, profound creations, and countless forgotten or discarded objects. The sheer, overwhelming volume and the incredibly eclectic nature of what was ultimately found within this legendary space immediately spoke volumes about Ozzy's singular existence. It wasn't just limited to musical memorabilia, as one might conventionally expect from a rock star's archives. Instead, the vault proved to be a bewildering yet utterly fascinating cornucopia of items that truly and vividly reflected the multifaceted, often contradictory, and undeniably extreme personality of Ozzy Osbourne. This collection was a tangible diary of his highs, his lows, his creative genius, and his notorious excesses. What precisely was eventually cataloged and preserved within this legendary space? Imagine stepping into a meticulously organized, yet still overwhelmingly vast and densely packed archaeological dig into a rock icon's very soul and career. The contents span the entire spectrum from the genuinely priceless, historically significant artifacts to the profoundly bizarre, almost unsettling oddities. There were, for instance, thousands upon thousands of hours of unreleased audio recordings, forgotten demo tracks from Black Sabbath's nascent, raw days that predated their iconic albums, raw, stripped-down solo tracks that showcased a vulnerable Ozzy, improvised jam sessions that captured the spontaneous genius of various musicians, and countless fragmented, spontaneous lyrical ideas captured in moments of both fleeting clarity and drug-fueled chaos. These weren't merely musical snippets. They were auditory windows into the foundational creative process of a band and artist who didn't just play heavy metal, they invented it, capturing the raw, untamed energy and experimental spirit that might have been too unpolished, too unconventional, or simply too ahead of their time for immediate commercial release. Beyond the treasure trove of music, there were extensive video archives, rare, never-before-seen concert footage from early, legendary Black Sabbath tours that predate widespread video recording, incredibly candid, unedited behind-the-scenes glimpses of his explosive solo tours that show the madness of life on the road, deeply personal home videos that likely showed a softer, more intimate, and surprisingly paternal side of Ozzy, and perhaps even footage of his most infamous antics that were deemed too extreme or controversial for public consumption, even by his own standards. These visual records offered an unparalleled, almost voyeuristic look into the raw, unedited, and often shocking reality of a life lived as a quintessential rock star. But the vault's true, undeniable confirmation of public suspicions lay undeniably in the more personal, often stranger, and profoundly revealing items it housed. There was an extensive, almost theatrical, collection of stage costumes, some immediately recognizable and iconic, like the batwing cloaks, sequined jackets, or elaborate Gothic ensembles, while others were incredibly bizarre, reflecting his boundless theatricality and utterly unique, eccentric fashion sense that defied categorization. Each worn, tattered piece likely carried the phantom scent of sweat, smoke, and sheer adrenaline, embodying a particular era of his turbulent career and the energy of countless legendary performances. Beyond the fantastical clothing, the vault reportedly contained an incredible, often bewildering array of personal effects and truly peculiar collections. A vast assortment of handmade, often strange, gifts from fervent fans, an eclectic mix of bizarre souvenirs from his endless global travels, perhaps even confiscated items from his numerous high-profile arrests, or trophies salvaged from the wreckage of his wild, destructive nights in hotel rooms. Rumors, often fueled by Ozzy's own admissions, persisted of odder curiosities. A preserved animal or two, perhaps a macabre homage to his infamous bat-biting incident, a collection of discarded broken hotel room appliances that bore silent, jagged testament to his destructive phases, or even taxidermy specimens that mirrored his dark aesthetic. The sheer presence and variety of such unconventional items in a personal archive unequivocally reinforced the dominant public image of Ozzy as a man whose life was perpetually, defiantly out of the ordinary, where the very line between mundane reality and exaggerated rock and roll legend was not just blurred, but obliterated entirely. This was the physical manifestation of the wildest tales. The immediate aftermath of this gradual revelation, or ongoing organized discovery, as it was more accurately a meticulous process of inventory and preservation, rather than a single dramatic unveiling, was not a singular media frenzy, but a sustained, almost reverent wave of renewed interest and a quiet yet profound affirmation among his colossal global fan base. This wasn't breaking news in the traditional fleeting sense, but rather the slow, unfolding, and deeply satisfying confirmation of a long-held, almost intuitive understanding of Ozzy's world. The details, as they judiciously emerged through authorized interviews with Sharon and other trusted family members, carefully curated official archival releases, or even glimpses in later documentaries, cemented Ozzy's larger-than-life persona even further. It wasn't just speculation or anecdotal evidence anymore. Here was the tangible, undeniable, often bizarre, physical proof of the wildness, the unpredictability, the artistic genius, and the profoundly unique history of the man. For lingering critics, it might have provided further tangible evidence of his legendary excesses and sometimes destructive tendencies. For his legions of devoted fans, however, it was a profound validation, a deep-seated confirmation that the larger-than-life, often cartoonish character they had adored for decades was in fact incredibly genuine, deeply authentic, and that his life truly contained the kind of incredible, bizarre, and often unbelievable moments they had always suspected lay beneath the surface. It was the physical embodiment of the Prince of Darkness's reign, confirming that his legend wasn't merely a performance meticulously crafted for the stage, but a deeply lived, intensely felt reality, meticulously stored away for future posterity. The sheer, mind-boggling scale of the archives and the deeply personal, often chaotic nature of some of the artifacts presented an immense logistical and emotional challenge for the Osbourne estate. How does one properly catalog, preserve, and eventually decide what to do with such a sprawling, often disorganized, and deeply intimate collection? This wasn't merely about efficient storage. It became a monumental undertaking in curating a living, breathing legacy. The archiving process itself became an integral part of the overarching narrative, highlighting the ongoing effort to manage the immense historical footprint of a man who rarely looked back, always hurtling forward. Thank you so much to everyone who watched to the end. Your likes and subscriptions are incredibly valuable. And be sure to hit the bell so you never miss new videos and stay updated.